Ever since we started talking about a lot of the other lords that are from some of the races that have already come into the game, like the Empire Lords or the Dwarf Lords or some of the other ones from like Chaos and such, a lot of you guys have requested Markus Wulfhart. And I did promise the mighty Markus Wulfhart, and so today we will talk about the mighty Markus Wulfhart. I think he's a really cool lord because he's different. He's definitely different than the other lords that we see for the Empire. You know, he's not some grand marshal. Well, I mean, he is a marshal, but he's not some grand like plated knight that is on a horse, or he's not some sort of grand wizard or warrior priest or anything like that. In fact, he is a huntsman. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Markus Wulfhart today. We're going to go into his lore blurb as always and talk about his special rules, but I'm going to talk about a really cool idea I've got for maybe a speculative DLC for him or something of the sort to bring him in the game as well as the huntsmen. So let's talk a little bit about Markus Wulfhart, the Huntsmarshal of the Empire. Markus Wulfhart is the finest scout in all of the Empire, a huntsman from Middenland whose life was irrevocably shattered when the Drakewald Cyclops, a one-eyed bone-grinder giant, razed his hometown of Drakenberg to the ground, slaughtering its inhabitants. Burning with the desire for revenge, Wulfhart tracked the great monster to its lair. A skilled marksman, he blinded his quarry with a single shot from his bow before closing with the stumbling giant and severing its rope-like hamstrings with repeated blows of his sword. As the giant crashed to the ground, Markus showed it no mercy, and with blade in hand, he hacked at its neck a dozen times until the monster's head was severed. Wulfhart had slain the beast that had butchered his kin, but he knew that there were many more monsters still lurking in the dark forests. He swore that no other settlement would suffer the fate of Drakenberg if he could help it, and so he set out to hunt the various monsters that preyed on the Empire, and only when every last one of them was slain would he rest. As recognition for his deeds, Markus was offered a knighthood by Karl Franz himself, and with it the luxury of a nobleman's estate. However, Wulfhart declined, wishing only to be allowed to continue his self-imposed quest. The Emperor was impressed with Markus's grim determination, and so gifted him with a magical bow from the Imperial vaults. Karl Franz also bestowed Markus with the title of Huntsmarshal, the Emperor's captain of scouts, and tasked him with recruiting a band of like-minded followers. Wulfhart's hunters are an elite, if ragtag, regiment of scouts handpicked by Markus from across the Empire. Nowhere else in the Emperor's armies can a more disparate group of warriors be found. Midlanders fight beside troops from as far afield as Averland, and city-born men rub shoulders with those raised in rural backwaters. However, any regional differences are quickly eroded, and bonds of comradeship are forged as they fight against a common foe. Under Markus's single-minded leadership, Wulfhart's hunters have become the most accomplished group of monster slayers in the Empire. Together they have slain the Talon Beast of Stirland, the Ostermark Ice Dragon, and the Chimera of Flamespire Peak, just to name a few. Whilst lesser men might have been paralyzed with fear facing down such terrifying foes, the aim of Wulfhart and his chosen men has never wavered as they prepare to let loose the arrows that will rid the old world of one more monstrosity. So you can see a very different lord, right? He's a ranged lord, and that's something that is not something that is common for the Empire legendary lords, let alone the Empire Lord choices. They don't have a crossbow lord choice like the Dark Elves and the High Elves do, where they can kind of choose a sword and shield or sword and crossbow. And I think that's what makes him so cool. He has a lot of special rules that kind of make him the Wulfric of hunting large targets, and that's what I think is very fun here. So I kind of think of him almost like a combination Wulfric as far as mechanics go, and a combination Waystalker as far as having some similar mechanics to them as well. So let's talk about his special rules. He has hatred monsters, so obviously he gets that one-up fighting monsters, which would be maybe a really cool campaign mechanic, or a really cool mechanic that you could have in like a multiplayer setting, because, oh, okay, I'm going to take Empire and I'm playing against Lizardmen. Well, shit. I know I'm going to be fighting against a lot of monsters, or large in general, so maybe I'll take mighty Markus Wulfhart. Or, okay, I'm going to be going up against Tomb Kings, and a really great Tomb King situation would be to, maybe take one Doom Pussy, but I mean, Necrosphinx, against Empire, even though they can cannon to death. But my point still is, you have a really cool anti-large hero in Markus Wulfhart, and I think that they don't have that. They don't have a hero that can really go toe-to-toe with large beasts. in a non-dueling, fashion. Of course, like, Boris Todbringer, Karl Franz can really go toe-to-toe with some of the other lords on their dragons and their massive beasts. But it'd be great to see Markus Wulfhart, whose sole focus is being able to burst those down. I don't think he's going to be a character that's going to be able to, Orion his way through the battlefield by chucking essentially ballista bolts down range. I think he's going to be he would be a very focused lore that is able to snipe out hunters, kind of like that word. So he's got this other ability he's immune to psychology as well. So on the monster hunter thing I was saying, he has another rule called Monster Hunter, and this basically gets him additional benefits when fighting against monsters. But what if this kind of gave him a Wulfric ability that was like a -30 to their armor and locked him in place, almost like a net Prey of Anathrama, something like that, where it really allowed you to lock down a monster and focus it as hard as you can. And I think it'd be almost similar to what we get with, again, Wulfric, but with also the Ulthar's Raiders, and how they can pretty much give a huge penalty against range defense. And that's what I think would be really cool here, is that he has something that can pretty much burst down a monster fast. Because Monster Hunter then plays into his lore, it's an actual special rule for him. Maybe he has a special anti-large characteristic with an AP, obviously, something of that sort. But he has another thing here that's called Wulfhart's Hunters. This will kind of play into my idea for a DLC for him. But if your army includes Markus Wulfhart, one unit of Huntsmen may be upgraded to be Wulfhart's Hunters. This unit gains the Monster Hunter and immune to psychology special rules. Monster Hunter in the tabletop game means that you can reroll if hitting. So it would increase what would be considered your melee attack, your ranged attack, your likelihood to hit. So maybe the Monster Hunter ability would play into a DLC that's maybe called the Hunter and the Hunted, and it has Markus Wulfhart alongside his huntsmen added into the game, and maybe even some other Empire units I can't think of off the top of my head. But also it might include, say, the Charybdis from the Dark Elves and Beastmasters into the Dark Elf roster, or maybe Malus Darkblade as someone who, since he rides a beast, depending on what we don't get from this legendary lord pack, if it is in fact Dark Elves coming up here in May. But I think it'd be a really cool thing, a Hunter and Hunted. It plays very heavy into it. Even the picture behind him has got this 3-headed beast, like chimera of sorts. So it'd be really cool to see that, or maybe even something like I'm trying to think of something like from Lizardman. It would be kind of nifty with a larger beast included in that, like the Dread Saurian, which I know all of us want, right? Who the hell doesn't want that? And I think that would be a really cool little DLC, if not like a quick little FLC pop into us. That'd be pretty amazing. And if this Wulfhart's Hunters I could see as a regiment of renown, huntsmen being added in with the Empire as well. So a really cool mechanic around Wulfhart, Markus Wulfhart, with that in mind. But he does have magic item, the Amber Bow. And this bow was carved from a Drakvald oak, and enchantments were placed upon it by amber wizards. Its shots are guided by magic to the heart of fierce monsters. So I can see this almost like the Waystalker ability, right? Blessed Shot of Kyranos, whatever it is, where it shoots up, it heat tracks, almost like a J-Dam, and then slams right into them. So I could see it would be something like that. There would be a high AP burst ability. So basically you trigger your Monster Hunter ability, which is going to reduce their melee defense, or I'm sorry, the range defense, and you're also going to maybe net them. Like maybe that's too much. Maybe I'm giving too much credit here, because Markus Wulfhart is going to be on foot. He's not going to have any mounts. If they kind of stayed true to this, it wouldn't make much sense why he would have a mount either. And if they did that, we all know how lords on foot kind of deal with things, right? I mean, God, I almost thought of Helman Gorst. I almost threw up all over myself. But I mean, dwarf lords, they have a little bit more mass, but they can get knocked over and pinned down. Kemmler himself can just get bowled over non-stop left and right, so you can't even summon Krell. Like, that's the kind of worry of an infantry on foot legendary lord, and when they're locked like that, cavalry can really just punt them around. So I think they need something that's going to be able to lock down a monster so it can't knock him around, and he's going to need to be able to have the ability to just burst it down quick. So if the Amber Bow gives him that, the Shot of Kyranos, I can't think of off the top of my head, but the Waystalker Kyranos ability that shoots that heat-seeking, high AP, high burst damage shot I think it'd be really awesome, because I think that's the big thing with Markus Wulfhart. This will be a relatively one-trick pony. He's not necessarily meant to buff the group around him, but maybe on a campaign basis, he's going to give more benefit or more upkeep reduction or even recruitment cost or recruitment rank increase to your huntsmen, to your crossbowmen, to the riflemen, anything that's ranged of this sort. He'd be your, your kind of range guy there. But I think outside of that, he wouldn't have a ton of abilities that would apply to the army as a whole. He is a very singular entity. So if you decide, hey, I'm going to take Markus Wulfhart, hoping that my opponent takes a lot of anti-large and they take a lot of beasts, and this is purely in a multiplayer scenario, of course, your opponent might build against that in mind, and Markus Wulfhart would otherwise be relatively inept. He wouldn't be as useful on the board because he's not going to have those monster targets for him to focus on. So I think that Monster Hunter in the Amber Bow, while really cool in conjunction with anti-large beasts, I think they still have to have the same thing that Ulthar's Raiders do, that even if you're not firing at a large creature, it still does a crap ton of damage to a high-value target you want to burst down quickly. So I think that Markus Wulfhart would be a really cool addition to the roster because he is so different. We've talked about Ludwig, we've talked about Kurt, we've talked about some other lords here, and they're all, for the most part, melee knight lords. I mean, even Marius Leitdorf, who's really cool too, is a dude as an electric count on a horse, We'll go into stuff like, we haven't talked about Volkmar yet, but Luther Huss, who is a named warrior priest. We can talk about him a little bit, but for the most part, Markus Wulfhart stands out on his own as a very different lord for the Empire roster that I would love to see added. But let me know what you guys think of this. I mean, if you think that Markus could be incorporated in different ways, or if there's ways or other lords you'd like to see above Markus. Maybe this is not your favorite Empire lord, like I thought a lot of you, like I thought he was for a lot of you. There we go. But let me know in the comment section below, guys. Don't forget to comment and like the video. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll have our some fun here with Isfahan 5 Drop Site Massacre soon. Like I said, I'm putting a lot of effort into editing that so it comes out really amazing for you guys. I want it to be like almost like a History Channel like documentary piece. So we'll have that coming out here soon. But thanks so much for watching here today, guys. Have a good one and take care.